Welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast, where we serve and support leaders so you can serve and support your local church.
Hello and welcome to the Overflow Worship Podcast. It's me, Andrea Olson, and I just wanted to give a quick setup to the interview that you're about to hear. This is part 2 of an interview that I had with Chris from Rooted Music Coaching, and it is one that you don't want to miss. So if you missed the first half, go back and listen to the last episode, and then come back here, and you will hear the rest of our conversation. So let's dive in. Here we go. So tell me a little bit about maybe some of the core values that you try to hit home with the students that come through Rooted, whether in person or virtually. I would imagine most of a large percentage of your students are in person. Am I right?
Yeah, a large amount, yeah.
So what are some of the core values that all of your coaches really try to, bring home with the students that are with Rooted?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the biggest thing is trust, and that's fleshed out a few different ways. But and you see it in the progression of a student with a coach. When they first walk in for a trial lesson, there is no relational equity built yet. And so as we're in the process of building that over the coming, hopefully, weeks and months, that first lesson that we have with a student, it needs to not be filled with hardly any type of instruction, but more so like, hey, tell me about what you're doing. Tell me about what you really like and what you're into. It's very relational. And then it's somewhat, hey, show me now what you're playing, and encouragement. Like, it's all about that. It's all about encouragement, building trust, and just starting to lay the groundwork to build relational equity. And just to branch off on that tangent for a minute, that one of the things I think that separates our coaches from many others is that, yes, they have amazing skill musically. They're highly, talented musicians, and they know how to disseminate that information, but they also stay connected to their students after they're out of lessons. You've seen that. I've seen that with so many coaches and their students. Students will walk through divorces in their lives and other hardships that they're going through, and they're able to still stay connected to their coach. So there's a relational element to that is kind of all centered around the trust factor. There's consistency. Like, we have a standard that our coaches don't miss in a certain number of lessons per semester. And some, it's easier to hold people accountable to that, and then others, because our coaches do very different things, right? Some of them are traveling musicians, and so it sort of comes with the territory in certain seasons, and others aren't. And so, one of the things we highly value is consistency, because when a coach is able to be consistent, it does then impact that trust factor, and we are continually, 30 minutes, even half hour a week with a student every single week for a year is a massive amount of time. And what we can build, and not just musically, but relationally, is huge with those little increments of time. And so trust, consistency, we obviously highly value integrity. And then the last piece, I just highly value people who are committed to our vision of mentorship and equipping a growing subset of musicians, whether it's students or adults. I've been really fortunate to be able to hire musicians that either I know personally through friendships, or that my good friends have directly referred people my way. It just makes what we do so much easier. There's an immediate buy-in of what we do, and they catch the vision so much easier. So even in the growth, we have about 20 or so coaches right now who coach with us, whether online or whether in person. And to have the relationship that I do with each of them has been amazing. I don't think I thought that would have been quite as easily possible from the get-go.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I love that. And what I love about it is it's so much more than a swing in, get a lesson and swing out, like
Absolutely.
Check off the list. Like, you guys are caring about the students, and you're loving them, and, being a mentor type figure, in their lives, because maybe they don't have that, maybe there's nobody else who is seeing them and saying, wow, you're really good at that. I want to help you grow. And it's just such a beautiful thing. I love that so much. I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. There's so many students that are in our kind of online sphere, whether it's our digital products. We have some piano and guitar products that help students who either have no knowledge or an intermediate form of knowledge, like learn to play worship music. From there, or to the live virtual lessons that are in that same boat that you just mentioned. They're thinking, I don't really have someone who's the next step beyond where I am to either encourage or show me the next thing that I need to do. You look at YouTube and you search piano lessons or guitar lessons, and you get tens of millions of search results, and you don't even know where to start. And then beyond that, like there's the skill side, and then there's the stage side, which brings along with it a level of, if you're in worship, right, there's the spirituality side, there's the relational side, there's everything that's not playing music. When you're going to play a worship set for an hour, and any of these guys who travel will tell you the same thing. 95% of what they do is not related to music. It's related to the relationships, the logistics, to how you conduct yourself, and how you're just in a band environment, and it's relational, and it's very spiritual. And so to have people that can come around that, I totally understand. And I was one of those people. I fortunately had someone, my youth pastor when I was growing up, who was the next step beyond me and was able to teach me some of those things. But had it not been for him, and besides my parents, and as a teenager, I'm not listening to my mom and dad for every piece of advice. It's just like, guys, I know you know your thing, but like, this is different. My music is different, and so you need someone who's going to hit you on your level. But if it hadn't been for him, I don't really know who it would have been for me in my life that would have helped me get to those next levels and keep doing that. And so that's why this coaching and what Todd does with Worship Circle is so massive, because you need people like that. Even outside of the musicianship, you can get that. But to have the relational and the equipping and the encouragement, like that's just something people are not getting.
Yeah. Oh, so agree. I so agree. So for people who are listening, we have a wide range of ages and backgrounds, and, different leaders from all different walks of life in our audience. And I would imagine maybe some of them are thinking, okay, but I don't have a 5 or 6 year old who needs to start lessons. Well, tell me the age range of, students that you guys coach, because I think that people will probably really like to hear that.
Absolutely. So we start lessons with students about age 5 or 6. We have a couple coaches who are really gifted at teaching even younger students, 3 or 4. But typically for piano or anything like that, we'll start them at 5 or 6. And then through some of our digital resources, but also in-person lessons, we've taught people on up to about 80 or 85 who have not really learned to read. Like, we had this one guy, I remember, he was in his 80s, and he started working his way through one of our piano courses, and he had never learned to read music, and by the end of the course he was able to read music fluently. He was chording songs on the piano, and he had started doing all this after the age of 80. Wow. So it's amazing. So people some like to use the excuse, you're too old, or I'm not going to be able to pick that up. And it is harder. You do have to be more dedicated to it, but it's a blast getting to work with so many different ages of people, because with the little ones, they're sponges, but the attention span's not there, right? But then as they get older, things don't come quite so easy. But then there's another aspect of relationship that's there with some of the older students, whether they're 40, 50, 60, in terms of what they're trying to do for their church and whatnot. So all ages are welcome virtually for us. There's a segment of our courses that kind of meet each kind of stage of a player where they are. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario, but through all of those courses and through our live virtual lessons, we can kind of hit anybody where they need to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. And with your courses, are those self-paced, like video courses? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of 2 examples. So we have one piano course that's called Worship Piano from Beginner to Pro, and that's exactly what it is. It's a 1-year 52 video lesson course. So you designed to kind of take a lesson a week, designed to take someone who has absolutely no experience. Like, the first 2 lessons are just so basic and informational about the piano, how it works, the layout. And by the end of it, you're reading some pretty experiential and complicated sheet music, and you're also playing some more just advanced worship songs as you go through. And so it's just one step at a time, self-paced. You don't have to take it one lesson a week. You can do 5 lessons the first week if it's just really easy, and then you hit some that are harder. You can take as long as you want, and that's the beauty of that course. When you purchase it, you actually own the course for life, and anyone in your family can use the same course without buying an additional license. So we have that course for piano, and then we have another one that's just like it for guitar, designed to do the same thing, designed to take someone who has little to no experience on guitar, and by the end of it, help them feel very fluent in a variety of keys to be able to lead worship on these songs, and to have a fluency for reading a chord chart, knowing the Nashville number system, as well as on the piano side, being able to read music. Piano is such an interesting, and I know you know this, it's such an interesting instrument, because in most modern band scenarios, you're never going to read a lick of sheet music. But with piano, with as many opportunities as there are, whether it's playing a wedding, playing any other scenario where you're needing to read music, or it's playing in your local worship team where you need to read a chord chart, you have to be able to do both, really. And so we focus on both those aspects in piano, and then in guitar, we really focus on chord charts and playing modern worship music.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And I actually, when our daughter started voice lessons a couple years ago, I didn't even know that you guys had, and we're building this like self-paced program too, which is just amazing. It was such a valuable resource for churches and, just people wanting to learn and grow. So I love that you guys are doing that. That's amazing. Yeah,
it's been amazing to get to see the growth in them. I mean, we've connected with thousands of people through just those courses and that platform itself. And it's just another lifeline for people who, and it's obviously way more affordable. Like it's $250 for the guitar course, which takes you through basically about 3 or 4 months worth of lessons to do the same thing. And piano is a year, and that's priced at about $300. Okay. And if you were to look at a month of lessons, most places over the course of a year, you're paying thousands of dollars as opposed to hundreds. And so it is a much more affordable way to get started. And like you mentioned, there's so many people, even adults, who are in these courses. We mainly have adult women who are in these courses, learning and growing in their abilities. Maybe they took lessons when they were 6, 7, 8, and their mom or dad let them quit, and they're now feeling like, man, why did I quit? This is such an amazing asset to have in my back pocket. And so they get in these courses, and they're loving it because they're growing and they're able to do it at their own pace. Their kids go to bed at 8 or 9 at night, and they're starting to work on it right then. They're little 6-7 minute videos that don't take you a day to accomplish. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's just the little steps built one on the next, and you get where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was telling my daughter the other day, we were talking about something else. It was gymnastics, but it's still a relevant concept. Yeah. And I had heard a quote recently that said, you will fail at 100% of the things you don't try.
Absolutely.
And, and she was just kind of like, yeah, because I was trying to encourage her, like, so what if you don't get it perfect or you fail? At least you tried. To me, that's not a failure. And so it's like these videos and these self-paced courses, it's like, well, I guess if I don't try, I'll never know. But at least you've broken it down to these bite-sized, manageable steps for people to just give it a try, for people who have always wanted to, or like you said, quit when they were younger, and now it's manageable. And hey, in 3 months, they're going to look back and be like, wow, I would be so mad at myself if I didn't do this, because now look what I can do.
And it's so healthy to look at these opportunities as, they are seasonal, right? You especially as an adult, you go through seasons of change that don't allow you to do as much as you want to in a certain area of growth that maybe you wanted to. And then the next season that comes up, you have more time than you've ever had before, and you can really dig in and hone in. And that's the beauty of these courses is, this has happened multiple times. We have people who bought one of the courses in 2017 or 2018, and they kind of forgot they had it, but they reached back out after 2 years, and they're saying, hey, I made it through 3 months of lessons, but I really need to get back with it. I didn't finish anything. I still have access to this, and we're here. We're ready to help those people, even if they paid 3 years ago. Get right back in it, help them know maybe where to pick up based on what they learned before. They still have access to the same course, and they can jump right in where they left off. And so I think that's a huge piece of it for us as adults. It's very hard to commit yourself 1 year to something, to anything. The amount of ebbs and flows in life are insane. And so to know that you do have the ability to pick it up when you can and maybe pause when you don't, I think that can even maybe curb some of the failure, right? Because you've never truly failed unless you just completely say, cancel me, I don't want an account anymore. You still have the option to learn, no matter how far along you go.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes back to, like we were saying before, celebrating those small wins, even if it's like you did a little bit and then you took a break for a while, like you said, because of seasons of life. And I'm guilty of beating myself up for putting it down, because I'm like, I could have and I should have. And it's like, no, okay, that's okay. I just needed to take that break for that season, and now I'm back. I'm going to try this again. And I think that's so valuable for us to give ourselves that grace in the process of life.
And that just goes back into the comparison talk that we talked about earlier. When we see other people and what they're doing, it feels like other people are doing things all the time, and they're never taking breaks. Or that instantly they just popped up and were successful. But that's not the case at all. There was a lot of incremental gains, but also seasons where nothing happened. And so just to keep that vertical perspective on him, God, trusting his sovereignty and his lordship in our life, but then bringing it down to an earth perspective and a horizontal perspective, just having enough awareness to realize, I'm right where I need to be. I'm doing everything I can. Sometimes in certain seasons, always our kids are important, but there's going to be times when you're going to need to hone more in on what they're doing than your giftings and your growth and your ability. And then there's going to be times when you're going to be able to flip it. And so I knew this one lady, she's still part of one of our courses. She has 9 kids. Wow. And she went and learned piano through our course, doing the same thing, used it for her kids. And she had lots of ebbs and flows, as you can imagine. And if we can get our eyes off of what everybody else is doing and just focus on our coach, our mentor, what we're doing to succeed each day, there's a lot of value in that, and we're going to see a lot of great results. And I think we're just all happier people. Even if we don't see great results, we're just happier people.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think, God, it's such a reminder. I need to remind myself of this, and anytime I talk to churches, I try to remind the worship leaders, God has called you to this place for a purpose. And whatever else is going on around you is it doesn't matter as much as like what God has called you to. And who am I to say, for me and my calling, like, oh, well, this is too small, or this, like, I'm not doing a good enough job, because it's like, well, you know what? If I am keeping my focus on the Lord and what he has called me to, and saying, okay, God, what's the next step? What's the next step? Then who am I to be the one to define what is success? God is the one who defines that. And I'm guilty of looking at what's around me all the time, for that. And so I think for all of our listeners today, hopefully that's an encouragement for you to just take a look at where you are now and where you've been and how far you've come, and celebrate that and live in gratitude for that, thanking God for what he has done, and then looking for ways to grow in the future and take those steps to find somebody who is maybe just that next step ahead of you and can help encourage you and celebrate and champion you along. And because that's what we all need, to help someone who can come alongside of us then and keep pointing us to Jesus, not berating us, but saying, hey, here's ways you can grow. And I think that's what you guys are doing with Rooted, and I just love that. So last question for you, Chris, before we wrap up here today. A lot of our listeners, again, all ages and backgrounds. So if you had a worship leader come to you and say, hey, I have some people on my worship team who are looking to grow, or they need to grow, and I can't do it. I can't teach them, or I can't help them. What are the first steps that you would encourage them to take?
There's so many things you can do. If there's no opportunity for them, or you as a worship leader are just capped, I completely understand that. And we have several partnerships with churches around the Alpharetta, Atlanta area who are, just frankly in the same position. They have they see talent and they want to equip and they want to take care and steward these students and adults that are there in their church every Sunday, and they just don't quite know what that next step is because they're just capped as a person giving their lives to weekly and yearly service in the church. And so if there isn't anybody to meet that need, obviously we love to come alongside and help in any way we can, without trying to get too pluggy. But we love for students, we offer this all the time to our online community and to anyone to just come in and schedule a free trial lesson, free 30 minutes with one of our coaches. And our coaches love to do that. They love to meet people. They use it as a way to obviously get to know you and your skills and your background, and then speak in a little bit to where you are. You can ask any question you have. For that 30 minutes, it's dedicated all to you. And it's completely free, and it's something we love to do. So that's kind of the first step I always bring up for anyone who's looking for either lessons or just kind of curious about what it is that we offer and what we do. And we do that through live online coaching and instruction, but also through in-person coaching instruction. And you can schedule that with any one of our coaches at any point. You can reach out to us at admin, ADMIN, at rootedmusiccoaching.com, and that's the first step. That's a great way to get started.
That's amazing. Thank you. Well, and I would imagine that they could go to rootedmusiccoaching.com, right, to kind of learn if somebody is like a fact finder like me.
Yeah, exactly.
And wants to read all the things.
Yes.
Okay.
You can see a list of our coaches and our About tab at the top of our website, rootedmusiccoaching.com, and you can kind of see who's working with us, who has worked with us, and just kind of what their gifting is, and hear a little bit of their background as well. Amazing.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and share about what God is doing through music. I can't even speak. Through Rooted Music Coaching. And just also for encouraging our listeners and sharing your story. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be able to speak, and to get to have the platform that you do is amazing. To work with aspiring worship musicians and leaders, it's amazing that God gives us the opportunity to do that. So thank you so much for the time.
You've been listening to the Overflow Worship Podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please take a moment and leave us a 5-star rating and a written review, which helps us reach more people. New episodes are released every other Monday. So until next time, thank you for listening.